Which stocks do the world's smartest investors own right now? Coming up, we'll share with you an exclusive list of 9 stocks that are must-own names for some of the top investors in the world. So let's get to it. This is Ticker Take.
John, before we get to today's stock picks, we know that the market has been wobbly after a big run-up.
Yeah, Caroline, some investors are worried about valuations. Are we in an AI bubble? What's next for the economy?
Yeah, and we'll let people debate those headlines, but we wanted to go beyond the headlines and see what top investors are actually sticking with.
To do that, we spoke with Jordan Novak of Brendan Wood International, a firm that for decades has done an exceptional job at finding the world's top investors. And in this case, what those top investors like in terms of stocks, at least for the next year.
All right, let's hear from Jordan now.
Jordan, thanks so much for joining us. Great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
So you guys are like the detectives of the investment world. You go around and you do an exceptional job of finding ultimately what end up being what you describe as the top guns, some of the top investors in the world. Can you walk us through how you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, we speak to over 2,000 institutional investors a year. We talk to them about 1,400 companies that we cover globally in all sectors and regions around the world, and it represents over $66 trillion of equity under management. And so through that process, what ends up happening is you're able to get nominations for people who are the best of the best on the buy side. We call them investment minds. And you split it by region, by sector around the world who are the best of the best. But at the same time, those same investors are telling us what they plan to invest in the future, what's carrying their weight in their portfolios, why they're doing it is always the most important part.
So this is a really helpful time to have this conversation because there's all these headlines about whether we're in an AI bubble or whether the market is starting to peak. And here you are talking to some of these very smart minds about what they're doing with their portfolio. And to be clear, this is some of the stocks they have conviction around for at least the next year. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. So everything is what people plan to do in the future. And so basically, if you think of the 1,400 names out there, it derives down to what's the top 25, right? Which stocks out of the 1,400 we cover, what are the top 25 names that people both want to own, but also have the highest quality conviction? And there's 10 different metrics that we actually go through with the investors about what defines quality. So we have CEO, we've got strategy, the board, long-term growth, et cetera. And so the investors are actually rating the companies on these key metrics, along with what their plans to own the company going forward are.
All right, so Jordan, today we're going to be talking about 9 stocks with big weightings among these top 25 companies that are in the Brendan Wood TopGun ETF, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, with all that said, let's get to that list of 9 stocks now. But first, a friendly reminder.
This is not financial advice.
Stock number 1, Nvidia.
Well, this is one of the most talked about stocks on Ticker Take, Jordan. And at the end of the day, it's had an amazing run.
Yes.
And a lot of people are curious. When you talk to professionals about Nvidia, what is the takeaway?
The takeaway right now is you own it and you continue to own it. Highest quality. It's moved up the metrics unbelievably in the last 5 years, never mind the last year. And it continues to resonate with investors. TopGun CEO, TopGun CFO, TopGun board.
Stock number 2, Broadcom.
Okay, another one that we've talked a lot about, and Jordan, another company that has had a very impressive growth run and a very impressive stock market run these last few years. What's the view on Broadcom?
Broadcom, again, another TopGun company. CEO has been marvelous for at least 5 years, according to investors. But the interesting thing is some investors, say that maybe they don't have as much growth as Nvidia. That is incorrect. Investors are all in on Broadcom going forward, especially tech investors.
Stock number 3, Taiwan Semi.
Well, clearly we're staying with this story of the companies at the center of the AI chip boom here. But, the commonality that we've seen amongst analysts with Nvidia, Broadcom, and Taiwan Semi, even after the run-ups they've had, on average, you've got more than 90% of the analysts who cover these companies who remain quite bullish. So when you do your analysis and talk to investors around the world, what did you find?
With Taiwan Semiconductor, TopGun strategy, especially, and growth potential, I know some investors have been leery about China and what would happen with Taiwan, but honestly, investors are still committed to Taiwan Semiconductor. And more importantly, it's non-Asia Pacific investors that are piling in to Taiwan Semiconductor.
Stock number 4, Microsoft.
Well, Jordan, even after the run up we've seen from Microsoft, this stock is still liked by more than 95% of the analysts who cover it. And on average, they would not be surprised to see it higher in a year's time. So, of all the work your team has done, what's the take on Microsoft?
Microsoft's been a TopGun company for at least 15 years. Every time there seems to be a crack in the foundation, it is quickly filled. Investors have been committed to it and continue to be committed to it. In our analysis, it's been the number one TopGun company for the last at least 10 years, possibly 15. So no matter what happens, they always have a TopGun CEO. More importantly, they always have a TopGun board and strategy, according to investors. And no matter what happens, people are going to own Microsoft.
Stock number 5, Alphabet.
Well, I have to say, we had a number of ticker take guests a year ago who were highlighting Alphabet as an opportunity. It's had a great run. I mean, it's had better performance this year than a Microsoft. But again, I come back to the consensus view. A lot of Wall Street analysts are still favoring Alphabet's business. What have you found with Alphabet?
No, absolutely. According to investors, this thing has been a home run for a while, and people continue to own it. Now, strategy changes from time to time, but what is consistent is the CEO, the growth potential, and the board. So the actual direction of the company, according to investors, will always be there. It's interesting. It's had a very big run up in the last couple of weeks with some new investors getting in. But if you actually look at the data a year ago, it actually would have pointed to this. So the investors were already planning to increase their ownership going forward. And now you've seen it actually happen.
Stock number 6, RBC.
Well, Jordan, our next couple of stocks will be banking related, and Royal Bank of Canada has had a very impressive run. It is still liked by more than 3/4 of the analysts who cover it. What's the takeaway on RBC?
Well, it's interesting. RBC has been in the top 3 for shareholder confidence for the last 10 years. So you had Microsoft, you've had JPMorgan, and you've had RBC out there. Even though it's a Canadian stock, and there's not many Canadian stocks in BWTG or quite frankly in the world, but it's one of those stocks that investors, no matter where they sit in the world, see the value and see the vision of what CEOs over the course of time, but the board also has in the strategy of the actual bank itself. And it continues to invest, according to investors, on growing that long-term growth.
Stock number 7, JPMorgan.
Well, Jordan, you were referencing JPMorgan earlier, and this is a stock that's come up many times on Ticker Take. We did an episode with David Burrows of Barometer recently. This is one of those high-quality names that he feels confident investing in for the long term. What's your take on JPM?
Yes, according to investors, JPMorgan, again, has been top of the top for an awfully long time in banking. They continue to innovate, according to investors. So the long-term growth continues to move and move and move. Now, Jamie Dimon's been at the helm for a very long time. Investors have the utmost confidence of him. If he were to retire at some point, maybe they would reevaluate. But until that happens, people are going to own this stock. And it's interesting because they also have a TopGun bench, according to investors, as in terms of the bench strength and possible succession. So it might not seem as a big as fall as people may perceive it to be when Jamie does step down.
Stock number 8, Welltower.
Well, Welltower is a top ticker take, top pick. And that is in part because they are well positioned, tied to this theme of an aging population. On average, Wall Street still really likes the stock, even though it's had a nice run. What did the research tell you about Welltower?
Yeah, no, investors are all in, definitely, on what's happening with the aging population in the United States. If you look at Welltower in terms of the stock price, I mean, people look at tech this year, but if you look in BWTG, Welltower's actually done the best of all the stocks out there in terms of return and everything like that. And it's interesting because they're attracting a lot more of European and Asian investors into the stock than they ever have right now. So more global investors are actually looking at the strategy and identifying with the strategy and saying, wow, this is something I need to put in my portfolio.
And stock number 9, HCA.
This gets us into healthcare services, and this is a stock that's come up on Ticker Take as well, Jordan, before, but it's been on a tear. What's the sense you get on what's been driving that conviction?
Well, the driving has actually been the long-term growth on HCA. Now, a lot of people are concerned about the healthcare space and kind of where it's going and profitability, obviously, but they've put out a plan that seems to identify with investors. So investors are telling us, if you look at our data in the last 3 months, it's accelerated both the long-term growth, the confidence in strategy, confidence in the board, and more importantly, confidence in the CEO. So the person that's running the company is accelerating their actual confidence scores from investors. And it's been fantastic. And right now it's pretty close to the top of the tape in terms of the confidence that investors have in the 1,400 companies we cover.
All right. Jordan, thanks so much. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
All right, that's our list of 9 stocks that some of the world's smartest investors are holding in their portfolio.
Our thanks to Jordan Novak and the Brendan Wood team for the great investigative research they've done. We've got more on their team in our description.
Where you can also find a lot more things Ticker Take, from our free weekly investing newsletter to the podcast edition of Ticker Take.
And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next investing video. See you next time.